Hi guys, it's Karen with Love Your Land. And I'm finally doing this video that I've been dreading doing, but I'm doing it because it's important for me. It's important for all of us, let's put it that way, for all of us to get the word out about this, because a lot of people are unaware of what can happen when you get compost from an outside source. So, and this isn't to scare anybody or anything like that. There are some ways to avoid this happening, but there's questions to ask, and so I'm going to cover all of that. So, and again, I'm doing this video too because people are still asking me, what happened to why can't you eat your fruit? What's wrong with your tomatoes? I've already said it like enough. And it's hard to keep telling the story over and over. So from now on, anybody who asks me what happened, I'm just going to give them the link to this video. So here's what happened. I needed to raise the soil level in these beds this year. So in the spring, it was end of May 23rd or something. We had 7 yards of compost delivered from a local supplier. Had it added to these beds. Well, we added it to the beds. They didn't do it. And sometime after that, I don't remember, I have the timeline on Facebook, but like a week later, let's say, I started planting my tomatoes out. I started with that bed down there, not this one, but the one, you know, there's the 6 here. So I started with one down there, put them in. Everything was fine at first. And about a week later, I was like, is this like shock? I don't know. It just, they were starting to look a little different, but you have to keep in mind at that point, the plants were all my plant. They appeared to, they looked like my plants, the ones that I've been growing. Then little by little, maybe another week later went by, I noticed all the new growth was distorted. And I thought, well, that's weird. And I'd pinch it off and I'd throw it. And then, long story short, complete devastation. They're still there and they're still green and just like these guys, but they, I kind of don't even know what kind of shape this is. They're completely distorted. All of the new growth is distorted. They're not going to produce fruit. This plant here, I know there's a couple down there, but I have about 70 plants in here. It looks like only about 25, but there's about 3 in each planting space. So, and I've been growing these inside since February, something like that, for those of you who don't know me. So that bed down there started to look funky, and I was like, I don't really get it, but okay. And I'd never had anything like it either. So then I started planting in this bed. We got to this middle section here, which I don't think you can see, but the video I did a couple back where I'm showing you all the rabbit dens, I start out right here, and this one had 3 in it. And my son and I were planting these, and we were like, well, we can't go on because there's rabbit dens. So there were 4 pots of tomatoes left, thank God, that did not go in this compost. So when it started to get more and more severe, oh great, there's a wasp. I started to look into it, and the first thing that I believed was that I had herbicide damage. I didn't know what kind because I'd never had herbicide damage before, and I wasn't real familiar with that whole problem. But herbicide drift, I mean, my neighbors are real far away, not real far, but they're at least, everybody's pretty much at least an acre away, if not 2 or 3. So, but it doesn't matter. Herbicide drift can come from like 2 miles away. So that's what I believed. And I was like, I was pissed. I mean, but then again, what are you going to do? I mean, it's legal for some reason. So I kept researching and I thought, well, maybe it was like nitrogen toxicity or something, you know, like compost mixed with the plant food I use. Maybe that was just like too much. It's not that. If it was that, I would have like this crazy amount of new growth. There's a little yellow bird down there. Anyway, I don't have crazy amount of new growth. I have like, these are almost the same size as when I planted them. So, and they've been out here a month or more, month and a quarter. So it's not that. I know it's not that. Anyway, I just figured, okay, I don't know. I'm just going to send it to CSU, to my local extension office, to my professors there that I took my Master Gardener class with, because I know them. And I knew that they would help me. So I sent it off to her. They laid it up, told her the whole story, and then sent her pictures. And she got back to me right away, and she said, it's definitely herbicide damage, but it's not 2,4-D, which, by the way, I thought it was 2,4-D. She said, it's aminopyrrolate, I'm sure of it. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. So I start Googling. Now I'm even more pissed because, pardon my language, but I am pissed. What it is it's a broadleaf herbicide that's used in like farming, and if it's sprayed on a pasture where livestock is going to graze, those farmers are not supposed to take that manure and sell it for compost or put it in compost and use it or sell it, because it's so toxic to plants, and it's really obvious in things like tomatoes and beans, potatoes, and it's only like 2 parts per billion. That's how sensitive they are to it. So, but something happened between the cow, I don't remember if it was cow or horse, but anyway, the livestock that grazed in the pasture where they grazed, and then by the time it got to my supply company, somebody didn't talk to somebody because it went into this compost. And the reason I'm so sure of it, even though we haven't gotten the test back yet, and I will tell you what happens when we get them back, but the reason I'm so sure is because, first of all, this just went bam and hit all my tomatoes at once. Still could be a virus, but generally if you're going to get a virus, they're not spread like this type of virus, I should say, a bug spread virus. It's going to take a while for that same exact bug that bit your plant and now is infected with that virus to get to every single plant in rapid succession. It's just not very likely. So, and the other thing is, when I started researching it, you can't just look at, like, this looks like tomato mosaic virus. In fact, I'll show you up close. Oh, there's little flowers I just picked up. Doesn't matter. Sorry, dude. The damage looks exactly like tomato mosaic virus. The difference is you need to look for symptoms that are lacking. Okay, in tomato mosaic virus, there are other symptoms. For example, you would have mosaic pattern, hence the name, on your leaves. I don't have that. I have very green leaves all the way through, everywhere. Actually, there's one there that just, I don't know what's wrong with it, but it's got like a couple things going on. But let me show you this up close. That's how the new growth comes out, completely distorted. And yeah, I think I just showed you a flower, but I'll show you, if you haven't seen it by now, I'll show you close at the end or something. And we're getting a storm, so I have to wrap this up. So I looked for symptoms that I was lacking. I was lacking any other symptoms. So, and the other reason that, again, we have to get the test results back, but I know this is what it is because these are here, the tomatoes are here, way up on the deck, way over there, 50 feet away or so. I have other tomatoes, peppers, I can't remember now, I'm losing my mind, basil, and potatoes growing. Everything up there is beautiful and fine and lush, except the potatoes. Why? Because they're the only things up there that were grown in this compost. I have those potato bags, and I kept backfilling it actually as they grow up. That's how you do it with this compost, and they're completely distorted. So I posted a picture of that on Facebook as well. So this is not herbicide drift either. That's the conclusion with that. That's the reason, one more piece of evidence of why I know this is what it is, that it is in this soil or compost, because herbicide drift would not come here, only target this row of plants, leave those cucumbers alone, but then hop on up to my deck, small deck, and all of those very sensitive plants up there that it could have attacked, and it only dropped down into 2 separate potato pots. Come on, it's not possible. It's just not even reasonable to entertain that that's possibly what happened. So I know it's in the soil. The reason I want this video to get around, and in fact I forgot to say it, please share this video. If you've been around, if you've been watching me for a while, you know I never ask you to share videos. I think once I have, but that's about it. I'm asking you to share this because if I was a new gardener and this happened and I had everything planted out, which by the way the rabbits kept me from doing this, but if the rabbits hadn't been in here with their dens, I would have had everything planted out, and things like squashes, and I'm growing a lot of them this year, they wouldn't show any signs. So I would just think that my tomatoes had a disease, and I had a bad year with my tomatoes, and I'd be eating all of that. And a new gardener is going to think that too. They're not going to they're going to think they have curly top virus. They don't even know what it looks like. It's curly and it's on the top, so that's what they're going to think. So And then what's going to happen? But everything else is fine because it doesn't really show signs in things like squash. So, or cucumbers. You should see my cucumbers. They're beautiful. And so what would happen next year? They're going to plant all their stuff out again. Everything that they've probably been growing in their house for months. Like me, these tomatoes had all been growing in my house since January or February. And everything else is going to be fine. Again, they're going to have a bad year with their tomatoes. They're just going to keep thinking they're having a bad year. And they're going to keep eating it. And you're not supposed to eat it. It says right on CSU's website, do not eat the fruit. Do not eat it. And that's just with herbicide damage. This is totally systemic. This isn't something that flew over and fell. This is completely systemic, which is why it's coming out in every bit of new growth. No matter how many times I clip it off, it keeps coming back in the new shoots, the new suckers and whatnot. So that's why I'm asking you to share it, because there's more to ask yourself. There's more to ask your garden center. There's more to ask Google if this is happening. Again, if you have this weird deformed situation going on your sensitive plants, if you're not growing, and by the way, if you're local and you had to get bulk compost this year, again, I'm not going to say who it is, but if you had to get bulk compost this year and you're growing a whole bunch of other stuff, but you're not growing sensitive things like tomatoes and beans and potatoes, and everything looks fine because you're not growing those sensitive things, dig down about 4 inches in your soil. Again, this is for people who are local, who bought bulk compost this year. Dig down about 4 inches, take some of that soil, put it in a little pot, plant a bean seed in there, and take care of it just like you're going to grow the bean for yourself. And grow it to maturity, meaning past the second set of true leaves, for, a little plant. If the new growth starts coming out distorted at some point, you have the same contamination. So, and again, I'm not going to say who it is because it's a local company, and I know this wasn't intentional on the part. It was neglectful, but it wasn't intentional. I know that. Why would they do that? But I have a moral dilemma too, because I want to tell you, I don't want to hurt them, but I want to tell you local people who it is, because I don't want, if you have it and you're growing your stuff in it, I don't want you to keep growing in it next year. And no, I don't want them to get sued by a bunch of people or anything like that at all. I don't want to hurt them in any way. But this needs to be remedied. It needs to be fixed. And by the way, you can't just dilute this soil. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't break down. It does eventually, but when I was talking to the U.S. Composting Council, I said, yeah, I've read that it can take up to 3 years to break down. And he said, we don't even know how long. So he said, it's not it doesn't just go away. It doesn't just rinse out of the soil or anything like that. So there's that. So the things you need to ask for, that's the other thing I was going to tell you. When you're buying compost, and I don't care if it's green compost, meaning not from an animal, or if it's from animals, here's what you need to ask. Is it certified? Is your facility certified? And they would be certified through the U.S. Composting Council. And you can look them up yourself. You can call them. They answer the phone. When a company, when compost is certified, they do a bioassay. So it's not, they don't actually put the soil in test tubes and check for every component of it. What they do is exactly like CSU is doing for me right now. They grow a bean plant in it, one bean seed in one with this compost or with whatever compost, and then one in a check medium. So it might just be plain vermiculite or whatever. And they grow them and they compare, and they should be 85 to 95% the same. And if they're not certified. And then there's other things they have to do too. But if a plant came out like this, no, they're not checking the components of the soil in a lab, under a microscope. But if it came out like this, they would be you got something going on with your soil. There's probably herbicide in it, and they wouldn't be certified. But if they are able to grow plants, sensitive plants like beans and tomatoes, like this, not like this, normal, then they're certified and their compost is fine. So will I ever get manure compost again? Maybe, because what's the difference? You have the place I'm going to get it from the next time I get my compost, it's from the brewing companies, the local brewing places. I think it's Barley. And I said, well, what's to say they're not going to spray the barley? And the guy I was talking to was like, you're absolutely right. That's where the U.S. Composting Council comes in and making sure you're buying from a certified supplier. So it wouldn't matter if it was a pasture sprayed where a horse grazed and I get that compost, or if it's just a pasture of barley that they don't want, whatever. So yes, I might still. So yes, I might still use animal manure. I don't know. There's the danger, the risk potential is the same though, is my point, or it can be the same. Also, when those animals eat that, I never explained this part, you're not supposed to use, I mean, even if you go to Dow Chemical Company's website, it says it has a stewardship program and a stewardship statement, stewardship agreement. And they're like, if you use this product, you don't take the manure that those animals grazed and pooped out, you don't take that and put it in compost. You don't even move those cows or horses for 3 days after they've eaten it. So that's how serious they take it. And so the place that I got it from, I don't know if they make their own or if they got it from somewhere else. I don't know that yet. But that's what happens. It passes right through the animal, right through them. It doesn't even harm the animal. I mean, it sure does on some level, but it just goes right through them and into the poop. And that poop is not supposed to be used for anything. So there you have it. I think I'm missing something, but I can't really stand out here next to these poor guys anymore. I feel like they're asking me to help them in some way, and I can't. So I'm going to go inside. But I did. The last thing I guess I'll say is that, you know, when stuff happens, stuff can happen. Pretty devastating stuff can happen in your garden. I didn't see this coming at all, but just because something happens doesn't mean you don't carry on. I had other things. I had some people who donated tomato plants to me. I had those 4 pots of tomatoes up there. I just whipped them into shape. Gave them big pots and some food, and they're doing great. I've bought a bunch of plants to replace stuff that I can't plant here or that I lost, and I'm making do. I'm still going to garden. I'm going to grow something. So, I mean, I'm doing it, obviously I'm doing it big of a scale as I can, but there's only so much I can do in that little tiny garden over there and on my deck. But if stuff happens, try to grow something anyway. Don't just give up completely. Try to grow something. Even if you just stick a bean in a pot and just grow yourself a little bean plant. You know, just something to keep your hands in the dirt and something to care for and water. It really makes a big difference. So thank you for all of your support through this sad little event. I appreciate it very much, and I'll keep you guys posted.